After years of living a life that most people could only dream of, the billionaire finally decided it was time to return to the town where he had grown up, the place where every street corner held a memory, every old building whispered a story, and every familiar face, though now mostly gone, seemed to linger in his mind. He had achieved everything he had ever wanted: wealth, power, respect, and luxury beyond imagination. Yet there was a quiet emptiness he could not fill with money or success. Alone, the town of his childhood had always been a part of him, and now, standing at the outskirts as his expensive car slowed down, he felt a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and nostalgia. The roads were narrower than he remembered, and the old houses had that same faded charm he had once ignored as a restless teenager. He could see the small shops lining the streets, their signs slightly chipped, yet they had a warmth that no high-rise or skyscraper could ever provide. He remembered running past these streets as a boy, racing his friends to get to school on time, laughing without a care in the world. Those memories came rushing back with a bittersweet pang, reminding him of simpler times when life was not about business deals or boardrooms, but about freedom, laughter, and small adventures. As he drove further into the heart of the town, familiar landmarks emerged, each one triggering a different memory: the old playground where he had spent countless afternoons swinging and sliding, the tiny bakery that always smelled of fresh bread and sweet pastries, and the narrow alley where he had learned to ride his bicycle without training wheels. All these places had been witnesses to the boy he once was, and now, as a man who had conquered the world in his own way, he felt a strange pull in his chest, a combination of longing and curiosity. He parked his car near the main square, stepping out to feel the air of the town on his face. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers from someone's garden, mixed with the aroma of street food being cooked. It was a scent that spoke of home, of memories he had buried under years of ambition and work. He walked slowly, almost reverently, taking in the sights and sounds, noticing how some things had changed. Like the new cafe with bright windows and a few modern touches, yet so much had remained the same: the rhythm of life, the laughter of children playing, the chatter of neighbors greeting each other. Every step seemed to pull him deeper into a world he had left behind. The streets that once felt small and confining now felt comforting and familiar, like an old friend waiting to embrace him. He noticed a few old faces peeking from windows or walking down the streets, their eyes widening in recognition as they whispered to each other, "Is that really him?" It was strange and humbling to realize that even in a town so small, his past had not been forgotten. Even in the midst of wealth and fame, he was still the boy who had once run barefoot through these very streets, stolen fruits from the market, and shared secrets under the old oak tree near the schoolyard. As he continued walking, he passed the corner where he had once met his first crush. The memory was vivid: the shy smiles, the stolen glances, the butterflies in his stomach, and he felt a warm ache in his heart. Life had taken him far from those innocent moments, yet the feelings they evoked were just as strong. He realized that no amount of success could erase the imprint of those first experiences, the first friendships, and the first loves that had shaped him into the person he had become. He stopped near the fountain in the town square, watching children play and pigeons flutter around. He noticed how the world seemed to have slowed down here, a stark contrast to the constant rush of the cities he had inhabited. Here, people valued connection over competition, laughter over deals, and memories over money, and for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to simply be, to feel, and to remember. The billionaire who had once measured life in dollars and investments was now measuring it in moments, in sights, and in emotions he had long ignored. As the sun began to dip behind the rooftops, painting the town in shades of gold and orange, he felt a sense of peace, mingled with anticipation. Something told him that this trip was not just about nostalgia, that there was something waiting for him in this town, something that could change his life in ways he could never have imagined. Little did he know, as he walked these familiar streets, that a single encounter was about to shake his world and bring the past rushing back with an intensity he was not ready for. As he wandered deeper into the streets of his old town, the billionaire felt memories stirring like ghosts gently brushing against his mind. Every corner seemed to whisper fragments of his past: laughter, arguments, secret hideouts, and moments he had long buried beneath years of work and ambition. He passed by the small park where he had spent countless afternoons tossing a worn-out football with friends, and he could almost hear their laughter echoing across the swings and slides. For a moment, He stopped and closed his eyes, letting the sounds of the town wash over him. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery next door reminded him of rainy afternoons when he and his childhood friends would sneak in just to taste a warm pastry, giggling all the way home. Then, as he turned a familiar corner, his heart skipped a beat. He saw the old school building where he had studied, its walls now faded and chipped, but still standing proud. The memories hit him all at once. The classroom where he had first answered a question correctly, the library where he had hidden away to escape the chaos of playground bullies, and the hallway where he had shared his very first secret crush. A girl whose smile had made his heart race and his stomach twist, even after years of high society, yachts, and business empires. He could feel the same nervous excitement he had felt as a boy. His thoughts drifted to her, his first love, his ex, the girl who had once meant everything, and who had unknowingly shaped the man he had become. He remembered the summer evenings they had spent chasing fireflies, the whispered promises under the old oak tree, and the tiny arguments over silly things that had always ended in laughter. It was impossible to believe that so many years had passed. Yet the images of her were still vivid, as if frozen in time. He wondered where she was now, what she had become, and whether life had treated her kindly. The thought made his chest tighten with both curiosity and fear. As he walked past the cafe where he had shared his first coffee with her, memories of conversations, laughter, and shy glances filled his mind. He could almost hear her voice, soft and playful, teasing him for his awkward jokes. The town itself seemed alive with the echoes of their past, and he felt both a longing to relive those moments and a hesitation, afraid that reality might not match the memory. Yet the pull was too strong to resist, and he continued walking, every step bringing him closer to the heart of the town and the emotions he had long ignored. He noticed familiar shops and vendors, their faces unchanged, greeting neighbors with warmth and familiarity. Unlike the cities he had conquered, where people treated him as a number or a deal, here he felt a sense of belonging, a connection he had forgotten existed. It was a reminder that life was not just about wealth and success, but about relationships, memories, and moments that money could never buy. A small smile played on his lips as he realized how much he had missed this simple, honest life, the kind of life that did not require bodyguards or luxury cars, but simply laughter, connection, and shared experiences. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye, a woman walking down the street, her presence familiar yet changed by time. He froze for a moment, heart pounding, as a strange mixture of hope, fear, and curiosity surged through him. He could not tell from this distance, but something about her made him stop, something that tugged at a memory buried deep within. It was a moment suspended in time, the world around him fading, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next revelation. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years pressing against his chest. The memories had awakened not just nostalgia, but an urgent curiosity about the life his first love had lived without him. He wondered if he could ever face her again, and what emotions would rise if he did. Would the past feel like a bridge to reconnect or a painful reminder of what was lost? The question lingered as he moved closer, unable to resist the pull any longer. Every heartbeat seemed louder, echoing in the quiet streets, and he knew that his life, already full of surprises, was about to take another turn, one that would challenge his understanding of love, family, and fate. As he continued walking through the familiar streets, lost in memories and emotions, he didn't expect anything to interrupt his quiet nostalgia, yet the universe had other plans, and in the next moment, everything changed. Turning a corner near the town square, he saw her, standing there as if time had frozen for her alone. His heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. She looked older, more graceful than he remembered, but her eyes, bright and familiar, carried the same spark that had captured his young heart so many years ago. He stopped in his tracks, unsure whether to approach or turn away. His mind raced, filled with 1,000 questions and a whirlwind of emotions. Surprise, curiosity, longing, and fear collided within him. He hadn't expected to see her, not here, not now, and certainly not in the middle of a town that had seemed so quiet and ordinary moments ago. Yet there she was, as real and alive as he remembered, yet changed by the years that had passed. She noticed him almost immediately, her gaze flicking up and locking with his, and in that instant, memories flooded back like a river breaking through a dam. The shy smiles, the whispered conversations under the old oak tree, the stolen glances in the schoolyard, it was all there, alive and vivid. His heart pounded as he realized how much time had passed, yet how instantly the past had come rushing back. As he approached her, he noticed subtle details he had never seen before, the way she carried herself, calm but confident, the slight crease at the corner of her eyes from years of laughter and life's challenges. The sight was both comforting and overwhelming, like a dream and a reality colliding at once. He wanted to speak, but the words seemed trapped in his throat, as if his own voice was not enough to carry the weight of years gone by. Then, suddenly, he noticed something that made his heart stop entirely. Two small figures stood beside her, holding her hands. Their faces were innocent, curious, and, impossibly, they looked exactly like him. Every feature, every expression mirrored his own in a way that was both shocking and surreal. His mind refused to comprehend the scene, and yet there it was, undeniable and real. The children's eyes held the same color and depth as his, their smiles were identical, and even their gestures reminded him of his own childhood. For a moment, he could only stare, frozen in disbelief. The world around him faded as he tried to process the impossible. His ex, standing there with twins that looked like mirrors of himself. How could this be real? Questions tumbled through his mind faster than he could grasp. Who were they? How long had they been here? And most importantly, what did this mean for him now, years after he had left? She looked at him, sensing his shock, and gave a small, knowing smile. There was a story behind this, a life he had never known, and yet it was connected to him in ways that could no longer be ignored. The twins tugged gently at her hands, unaware of the storm of emotions unfolding in the man who had just returned to their town. They were the living proof of a past he had left behind, yet somehow, destiny had placed him back in the same street to confront it. Every step he had taken that day, every memory he had revisited, had led him to this moment. The billionaire who had traveled the world, conquered empires, and amassed unimaginable wealth was now humbled by a simple, human encounter that no money could explain. His past, his decisions, and the life he had chosen all converged in that single moment, forcing him to face the unexpected truth that life had been quietly waiting to reveal. He realized, as he stood there frozen and overwhelmed, that this was no ordinary meeting. This was a turning point, a moment that would change his understanding of love, family, and the paths he had taken. And as he finally took a cautious step forward, the first words forming on his lips, he knew that nothing in his life would ever feel ordinary again. The past had returned, not as a memory, but as a living, breathing reality, waiting for him to acknowledge it and perhaps, to accept it. He could barely speak, frozen in place as he stared at the two small figures standing beside her. Their faces, their expressions, their tiny gestures, everything mirrored him in a way that seemed impossible. The realization hit him like a tidal wave, and for a moment, the bustling streets around him disappeared, leaving only the three people in front of him and the overwhelming truth he could hardly believe. The children looked up at him with curious, trusting eyes, unaware of the storm they had just ignited in his mind. Their tiny hands clung to their mother, yet there was a subtle, almost magical familiarity in the way they held themselves, movements that mirrored his own from long ago. It was like looking into a living reflection of his childhood, a reflection he had never expected to find. He turned his gaze to her, his ex, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. Memories he had long buried flooded back, the secret promise they had shared all those years ago, the fleeting moments of closeness that had once defined their youth, and the night he had left without knowing how much his absence would change the future. The years apart had been filled with success for him, yes. But they had also been filled with questions he had never dared to ask, and now, answers stood right in front of him, tangible and undeniable. She met his eyes calmly, but there was a depth in her expression that spoke volumes. She did not need to say a word, for the story was already written in their presence. The twins were his, children of a past he had forgotten or perhaps had never fully acknowledged. The air seemed to thicken with unspoken words, and he realized that this revelation was not just shocking. It was life-altering, challenging every assumption he had made about his past, his choices, and even his future. For a moment, he could only look at them, blinking rapidly, trying to process what he was seeing. The children's laughter, soft and innocent, broke through the tension, and yet, instead of lightening his emotions, it deepened them. Every giggle, every tiny gesture, was a reminder that these were not just strangers. These were a part of him, a part of his blood, a piece of the life he had walked away from. The magnitude of the revelation left him breathless, and he felt a strange mixture of awe, fear, and profound love. The twins, unaware of the enormity of the moment, clung to their mother and began to play, their tiny hands reaching for each other. Their movements, gestures, and expressions mirrored him so closely that he could see himself in them, a past version of the boy he once was, now standing before him. The reality of fatherhood hit with full force, a truth he had never imagined he would face so suddenly. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him, for all the years he had been absent, for all the moments he had missed, for every birthday, first step, and bedtime story he had never witnessed, and yet, alongside the guilt was a surge of emotion he had never known, the power of connection, the thrill of discovery, and the undeniable bond that could not be erased. The world seemed to hold its breath as he took a cautious step forward, drawn to the children, unsure of how to bridge the gap between the past and the present. She finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. "They're yours," she said simply, letting the words hang in the air. Each syllable echoed in his mind, shattering the world he had built for himself. The revelation was complete, undeniable, and overwhelming. There was no turning back now. The past had returned in the most profound and tangible way imaginable. He looked at the twins again, their innocent eyes filled with curiosity and wonder, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose that no amount of wealth or success had ever given him. They were living reminders that life had surprises beyond imagination, that the consequences of love, choices, and destiny could emerge in ways no one could predict, and in that quiet, suspended moment on the streets of his old town, the billionaire realized that his life would never be the same. Again, the astonishing revelation had not only shocked him, it had changed him forever, opening a door to a world of emotions, responsibilities, and connections he had never faced before. For a long moment, he simply stood there, frozen, staring at the twins and at her, unable to speak, unable to move. His mind was a storm, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that refused to settle. Shock still held him in its grip, but underneath it, something deeper was stirring, a mix of guilt, longing, regret, and a strange, almost terrifying joy. He had known the past could come back to haunt him, but he had never imagined it would arrive in the form of these two small, living reminders of the life he had missed. Every instinct inside him screamed to reach out, to hold them, to touch the parts of himself he saw reflected in their innocent eyes. Yet at the same time, a wall rose up, built from years of absence, fear, and the weight of everything he had lost. He remembered the decisions he had made, the life he had chosen, and how he had walked away from a love that had once seemed endless. Now, faced with the consequences of those choices, he felt a painful mix of pride and regret, pride in what he had achieved, regret in what he had abandoned. He looked at her, the woman who had once been the center of his world, and the emotions swirled even faster. Could he have ever imagined that she had carried the life of their children without him? That she had raised them alone, through hardships and sleepless nights, while he had been building empires and chasing success across the globe? The guilt he felt was almost physical, like a weight pressing against his chest, making it hard to breathe. Yet beneath the guilt was awe, awe at her strength, her resilience, and the love she had poured into these children. His thoughts drifted to the twins, and he realized just how much he had missed, the first steps, the first words, the laughter and tears, the small victories and defeats, moments that no amount of money could ever replace. They were living pieces of his past, pieces of him that had grown in another world without him, and now, seeing them, he was overwhelmed by the responsibility and the depth of connection he had never known existed. Every memory of his own childhood, every echo of first love, mingled with the present in a way that left him dizzy. He remembered the boy he once was, running through these streets, dreaming big dreams, and how he had never imagined that those dreams would come back to him in such a personal and unexpected way. The shock of seeing the twins was only the beginning. The real turmoil was in the emotions that now threatened to consume him, a mixture of fear, love, hope, and sadness. He felt anger, too, though it was strange and quiet, not directed at her, but at himself, for leaving, for failing to protect, for choosing ambition over love. He questioned every choice he had ever made, wondering if he could have returned sooner, if he could have been a part of their lives, if he could have done things differently. The answers eluded him, leaving only a hollow ache that twisted in his chest, a reminder of the human consequences of his past decisions. And yet, Beneath all the guilt and anger was something brighter, something that gave him a spark of hope. He saw in the twins not just a reminder of his mistakes, but a chance for connection, a possibility to build something new, to be a part of their lives now, even if the past could never be changed. The love he felt in that moment was unlike anything he had experienced in his high-powered, luxury-filled life. It was raw, real, and unshakable, pulling him forward even as his mind wrestled with doubt and fear. He took a step closer, almost tentatively, drawn by an invisible force. He wanted to speak, to say something that could bridge the years of absence, to reassure them, to reassure himself, but words felt inadequate in the face of such overwhelming emotion. Instead, he simply reached out, letting his hand hover near theirs, a silent gesture of connection, of acknowledgement, of love. The emotional turmoil that had consumed him did not disappear, but it transformed into something new, a mixture of acceptance, readiness, and hope for the journey that lay ahead. In that moment, standing in the heart of his old town, surrounded by the living evidence of a past he could not escape, the billionaire realized that life was no longer about wealth, power, or fame. It was about connection, about family, about the small moments that built the soul. And though he knew the path forward would be complicated and full of challenges, he also knew that for the first time in many years, his heart was exactly where it needed to be. After standing there for what felt like hours, unable to find the right words, he finally took a deep breath and stepped closer. The twins watched him curiously, their small eyes full of innocence and wonder, and in that moment, he realized that words would have to carry the weight of years he had lost. He glanced at her, the woman who had once been the center of his world, and felt a mixture of fear and hope. Afraid that she would reject him, yet desperate to understand everything he had missed. "Hi," he said finally, his voice rough from emotion. "It's been a long time." She nodded, her expression calm but unreadable, and gestured for him to sit on the bench beside her. The twins sat quietly on either side of her, holding her hands, and he felt the strange, humbling reality that they were as much a part of him as his own memories. They began to talk slowly at first, sharing the polite, cautious words of strangers reunited after years apart, but soon, the conversation deepened, and the walls of distance and time began to crumble. She spoke of her life as a single mother, the struggles she had faced, the nights spent awake worrying about the future, and the joy of watching her children grow into the little people they were today. Every word she spoke painted a picture of strength, resilience, and love, and he felt a deep respect and admiration he could hardly put into words. He told her about his life too, the travel, the work, the wealth, the achievements, and yet, how empty it had felt without family and roots. He confessed the moments when he had thought of her, the times he had wondered what might have been, and the regrets that had haunted him even in the midst of success. Listening to him, she didn't interrupt or scold, but let him speak, and somehow that simple act of listening felt like forgiveness. The twins, sensing the connection between them, began to play quietly, and he watched them, mesmerized by the way they moved, spoke, and laughed. Each gesture reminded him of himself, yet they were unique, alive, and a part of someone else too. It was humbling, emotional, and beautiful all at once. He realized that life had given him something far greater than money or power, the chance to reconnect, to understand, and perhaps, to love in ways he had never imagined. As the conversation unfolded, confessions began to surface, not just about the past, but about the choices that had defined them. She admitted the fear she had felt raising twins alone, the nights when she had wondered if he would ever return, the moments of doubt and worry that had shaped her life, and he confessed the guilt, the longing, and the love he had buried beneath years of ambition. They spoke of forgiveness, of understanding, and of how the past, though painful, had led them to this moment. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace mingled with anticipation. The walls between them had begun to crumble, replaced by honesty, empathy, and the unspoken bond that connected them all. He realized that the reunion was not just about seeing her again, but about understanding her, the children, and the life that had carried on without him. He was learning that love was more than being present. It was also about appreciating, respecting, and caring for what had grown in his absence. The twins giggled and ran toward him at one point, tugging at his sleeves, and he instinctively bent down, scooping them into his arms, feeling a strange, almost magical connection. Their laughter was infectious, and he felt his heart swell. He knew that this was just the beginning, that there would be many challenges, many awkward moments, and perhaps even moments of doubt, but in that park, under the gentle sunlight, with the woman he had loved and the children who were his own, he felt hope. For the first time in decades. By the end of the conversation, hours had passed, though it felt like minutes. They had shared stories, laughter, and even tears. Each confession, each story, had built a bridge between the past and the present, a bridge that he knew he would have to cross slowly, carefully, but one that promised connection, love, and perhaps redemption. And as he walked away that evening, leaving them for a short while, he carried a sense of purpose and emotion unlike anything he had ever experienced, ready to face the future with the knowledge that life, though unpredictable, had given him a second chance. After leaving the park that evening, he walked slowly through the dimly lit streets of his old town. The sun had set, leaving behind streaks of pink and gold that reflected off the worn rooftops, and the quiet hum of life surrounded him, yet his mind was far from peaceful. Every step echoed inside him as he replayed the events of the day, the shocking revelation of the twins, the heartfelt conversations with their mother, the laughter of the children. All of it swirled in his mind like a storm he could not control. He stopped on the old bridge overlooking the small river that had been his childhood escape, leaning on the railing and staring at the water flowing quietly below. The calmness of the river contrasted sharply with the chaos inside him, and he realized how much he had missed by being absent from the life that had quietly grown while he chased fortune. He thought about the paths he had chosen, the deals he had made, and the life he had built, and wondered whether all of it mattered now in the face of something as real and fragile as family. The billionaire had always measured his life in accomplishments, in money, in titles, yet tonight he realized that none of those things could compare to the connection he had just experienced. The twins had no understanding of wealth, fame, or power. They only knew love, presence, and care, and he felt a sharp pang of regret, thinking of all the moments he had missed, birthdays, first steps, bedtime stories, and the quiet mornings he would never get back. He thought about her, the woman who had carried their children through hardships without him, and a deep admiration filled him. She had been strong, resilient, and unwavering, raising two little humans alone, and yet she had still welcomed him back into their lives with cautious grace. The thought of asking for forgiveness felt both necessary and terrifying, because he knew that words alone could never make up for the years he had been absent. As he walked, he replayed every scene in his mind, the twins' innocent laughter, the way they mirrored his own gestures, their bright, curious eyes, and the gentle touch of their mother's hand guiding them. Every memory was a reminder that life had given him a second chance, but with it came responsibility, the kind of responsibility no contract or business deal could prepare a man for. He sat down on an old stone bench near the fountain in the town square, head in his hands, and allowed himself to feel everything at once. Guilt, love, wonder, fear, hope, each emotion battled the others in a chaotic mix, and yet beneath it all, he felt clarity beginning to emerge. He realized that his past choices had shaped the present, but they did not have to dictate the future. The question was no longer about regret. It was about what he would do next, and whether he could embrace the life he had been given. He imagined the days ahead, mornings spent helping the twins get ready for school, evenings telling them stories, weekends exploring the town and reconnecting with memories he had once taken for granted. He envisioned conversations with their mother, learning from her, supporting her, and building trust. The thought of walking away again felt unbearable, yet stepping forward meant acknowledging his failures and committing to a future filled with love, responsibility, and patience. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dream not of wealth or success, but of belonging, of family, and of moments that could not be bought or sold. He understood that life was fragile, unpredictable, and often unfair, yet it had also given him an opportunity to heal, reconnect, and grow. He had the choice now, to retreat into the comfort of his isolated life of luxury or to embrace the challenge of love, connection, and fatherhood. As the night deepened, stars twinkling above the rooftops, he made his decision, quietly but firmly. The path ahead would not be easy, filled with questions, doubts, and adjustments, but it was a path worth taking. He would step into the lives of the twins and their mother, not as a visitor, but as a part of their world, ready to love, to care, and to make amends. The billionaire had finally realized that true wealth was not measured in dollars or power, but in love, presence, and the courage to face the past and shape a better future. The sun was beginning to dip behind the rooftops, casting long shadows across the streets of his old town, and he knew that this visit, though brief, had changed everything. The twins laughed nearby, chasing each other around the fountain, their small feet splashing in puddles left from a recent rain, and he watched them, mesmerized, as if seeing pieces of himself reflected in their every movement, every smile, every gesture. Reminded him of a past he had once lost, a past that was now alive in front of him, yet fleeting. He walked over to their mother, the woman who had silently carried the weight of years without him, and for a moment, words failed him. The conversation they had shared earlier, full of confessions, understanding, and even forgiveness, had shifted something deep inside him. He felt a mix of gratitude, awe, and lingering guilt, emotions that were heavy but oddly comforting, reminding him that life, no matter how complicated, had a way of bringing the right lessons at the right time. The twins ran toward him, their laughter breaking the quiet evening air, and he bent down to embrace them, feeling the warmth of their small bodies in his arms. He held them tightly for a few moments, memorizing their weight, their scent, and the tiny details that made them who they were. Each second felt precious, a gift he could not afford to waste, and yet he knew that soon, he would have to leave, at least for now, leaving a bittersweet ache in his chest. He looked into their mother's eyes, and without words, they both understood the unspoken truth. This reunion was only the beginning, but life demanded temporary farewells. The twins needed stability, routine, and care, and for him to step into their lives fully, he had to do so gradually, patiently, earning trust and love one day at a time. Yet despite the challenges ahead, he felt hope. A feeling that had been absent from his life for too long. It was a hope that whispered of second chances, of new beginnings, and of a future where love and family could matter more than power or wealth. He knelt down, holding the twins' small hands, and said softly, "I'll come back soon. I promise." Their innocent eyes widened, and they nodded, trusting him in a way only children could. Their mother smiled faintly, a mixture of understanding, caution, and warmth in her gaze, and he knew she had seen the change in him too. The man who had arrived as a stranger to their lives was no longer just a visitor. He was a father, a man ready to step into the responsibilities and joys that came with it. The moment was heavy with emotion, each heartbeat echoing the complexity of years lost and now partially regained. He could feel the pull of the past, the weight of regret, and the promise of a future all at once. As he rose to leave, he lingered for a final look, memorizing every detail, the children's laughter, their mother's graceful posture, the familiar streets that had witnessed his childhood, and the invisible threads that now tied him to them. Walking back through the town, he felt a strange mixture of sadness and hope, sadness for the time he had lost, for the moments he could never recover, and for the love he had once taken for granted. But hope, too, surged through him, a hope that whispered of a second chance, of moments yet to be shared, and of a life enriched not by wealth, but by connection, care, and presence. He paused at the edge of the town, looking back one last time, and allowed himself a quiet smile. Life had given him a gift in the form of revelation, love, and family, but it was up to him to honor it, nurture it, and allow it to grow. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. Trust would need to be rebuilt, bonds strengthened, and fears faced, yet for the first time in years, he was ready to walk it. With a final glance at the twin faces that mirrored his own, he turned away, carrying with him a heart both heavy and full. The farewell was bittersweet, but it was also a promise, a commitment to return, to love, and to embrace the life that had unexpectedly found him. And as the night settled over his old town, he realized something profound. The past could not be changed, mistakes could not be erased, yet love, patience, and courage could shape a future worth living, a future where he was not just a billionaire, but a father, a man connected to the family he had almost lost, and a life richer than any fortune could ever make him.